Okay, thank you, Chintan. Thank you for joining this talk show, which is extreme gratitude, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
Yes, but before we start the interview, I have prepared one monologue, only two lines for you. It's little bit funny, but I'll tell you why it is true. So,
Okay.
ગુજરાતીમાં એક મૂવી આવ્યું હતું ફક્ત મહિલાઓ માટે, ઓકે, અને એમાં એક કેરેક્ટર હતું
Mm-hmm.
ચિંતન. સો એના માટે બે લાઈન હતી કે ઘરમાં કેટલી પણ થાય કટકટ, ચિંતા ના કરો, ચિંતન બધું સમજે છે. બાઈઓ આપે ગમે તેટલો સ્ટ્રેસ કે ગર્લફ્રેન્ડ કરે ડિપ્રેસ, ચિંતા ના કરો, ચિંતન બધું સમજે છે. Okay, so this was just a joke,
Oh
but
man.
to tell you truth is that yes, you understand so many things, and that the last part literally applies to you. So, and that's why
I
yeah.
feel some weight on my shoulders now.
Okay, great. Okay. So let's start with the questions. So my first question is about different approaches that one should apply at work, right? So the first question that is software industry is always evolving, and so do you think one should always learn the new languages and all?
I think trying to learn new languages all the time is kind of impractical for the software field because I have been working with Java. So basically it's a JVM language. It's a group of language, JVM language, and there are tons of language in it. What I really recently found out, couple of months back, there are almost 200 JVM languages under this umbrella. And I probably know 3 of them. So yeah, it simply would be impractical to learn new things. I think what one should understand is right now we are talking in English. We are fluent in Gujarati as well because we are Gujaratis, right? And we know Hindi as well because we interact with people who are using the language Hindi prominently. We don't really sit and study the details of each and every language literature. All we need is a little bit proper or improper grammar, and we are able to communicate. I think that's the same with the software language as well. It is meant to communicate with the computer that what it needs to do in a given context or a given situation. If that sort of thought process is clear, I don't think learning a language when the need comes up is really difficult. You can really do it at the time when you need it.
Okay.
But chasing new languages is sort of impractical. Yeah, it exhausts a professional.
Right. Okay. So, but then what should be the approach to learn new things then?
I think it starts from using it. So that's the main principle in the development work that I've been doing. I follow that if you want to learn something, just start doing it, and you do it in very simple ways first. We do not need to approach it in a most complex way right up front. Do it in very simple steps. Given that we already know one language at least, so we would know how to use that one language we are proficient with, and then try to replicate some simple features from the language we know into the language we are trying to learn. It is a process. Things does not happen overnight.
Right.
So I think it depends on how committed one is to learn new language, and it happens. I think it is once a software professional knows 1 or 2 languages, it is as good as taking up learning Spanish or French.
Right.
You have to stick to it. You have to start learning simple features and then gradually get up the ladder, and you have to keep practicing. That's the whole point.
Right. So basically, you are trying to say કે એવું ગાંડાની જેમ પેનિક થવાની જરૂર નથી અગર માર્કેટમાં કોઈ નવી લેંગ્વેજ આવે તો it is not necessary that you should know it as long as you know
Absolutely,
how to learn that.
Yeah. So I am. Yeah. So I was just trying to coin one simple example. I am working with a team, and the average experience in our team is 12 years. Because it's how my organization really builds up team, taking in seniors. The average experience is 12 years. And there are people who come up and say that, I'm sorry, I don't know an XYZ language, or I'm sorry, I have not used a tool. The tool, mind well, it is a decade old tool, but still the professional comes up and say that I have not used it. I'm sorry, I don't know it. I'll need some time to get used to it, and then I can become productive over it. So with that example, I would still, emphasize that chasing new things is really not a good way to approach software building. I think it's pretty hectic that way. So just keep it easy and simple, and things will come in its own time.
Okay. Right. See, I told you, मैं पहला कीधु के चिंतन બધું સમજે છે. So in this last 5 minutes, I feel that okay, this is justifiable.
Yeah, I think I'm just grateful. I'm picking up a couple of experiences and lines from what I have experienced in 15 years. So
correct.
It's just
correct. Yes. Okay, my next question. What should be the approach when you get a new task?
Basically, I would stress a lot on detailing. If I get a new task, if you are preparing to interview somebody, you work on the detailing stuff, right? You work on what sort of questions you are going to ask. You work on analyzing the profile of the person you are interviewing to understand what sort of questions really can be put, what subjects can be discussed. I get a task, I understand that what sort of business is this? What is the ROI? There are certain things in one task. What are of higher priority for the business to achieve first? So I think the detailing really makes sense. There is a high level of detailing in understanding what business does it achieve. Is it really going to earn a lot of money for the company?
Okay, so just sorry to just interrupt you, but when you talk about the ROI and what is the business priority, I believe that is for, let's say, who have 7 to 8 years of experience and more. But for the, let's say, fresher or the who have like 3-4 years of experience, they may not understand these things. So for them, what do you suggest?
I think so where I was coming to is starting with a high level of details. If that has been already worked upon, so a team works as a unit, and you have less experience, but we have a team lead who has a higher experience. And if the team lead has really figured out those details, high level details, then I think we can come to the lower level of details, where you understand what sort of output is expected from the task that you are taking up. Right? Is it some sort of algorithm? Is there some amount of performance requirements? So I now divert to specifically a software thing, because that's probably what I do on daily basis. So, and you understand what are the performance requirements, you understand what the output of the activity should be, you understand what are the technologies really involved here, and the main thing, do you have all the tools to comfortably fulfill the ask of the task? So that is the first thing. Of course, we are humans, we would miss out on certain things, and while we progress with the task, we would come to know that I did not ask a certain question, or I am really in the black when it comes to a certain algorithm. That's okay, right? Even with the task, while progressing, we can figure out those stuff. But I think the first approach whenever I get a new task is about detailing. There could be levels of details. Some team member might have already figured out certain details for me, and some are left for the person who really takes up the task. As much details and facts we would gather, the task would get easier with that, a lot easier. So there's a saying which I usually follow, that normally when we were juniors, we used to work in a way where it begins with something easy and ends with something chaotic. With the experience, that same thing, it actually turns upside down. You start being chaotic so that you can end easily. I mean the task.
Right. Very, very nice way to put it. Okay. I think I'll have to go through this, the answer, once this recording gets completed, to once again understand the same thing. But thank you. Because it was very deep. Yeah, it was very deep. Good. Yeah. Okay. My next question, Chintan, is what strengths do you think that are most important for a developer?
I'll probably go towards behavioral side a lot, but that's what you are also kind of here for.
Yes.
Pull me back if you think that it's not really going.
Right.
But I think with years of experience, what I've learned is that you need that enthusiasm, because things don't really work out if you are not excited about them. So first of all, you need to be excited about the problem you're solving. It could be a very nominal problem, a very minor one, but still you have a task to solve that problem. So you need to really be excited about how you're going to solve that problem, or there are 100 different ways to solve it. And the excitement is which one will I choose, such that it becomes kind of an optimal thing. And once that is really achieved, or once you have decided one way of writing some algorithm in your task, you go out for feedbacks, right? Because the smaller the feedback loop is, the more quality you would add to the task. So once you are onto something, logically, I am writing a sorting algorithm or some algorithm, and I decide that sorting is a part of that. So I will choose the quick sort algorithm in my task. Mm-hmm. So once I have made that decision, I'll just put that decision around on across the team, and I will get feedbacks. Mm-hmm. So the thing is,
you're trying to say is open-mindedness. I mean, enthusiasm should be there, but then open-mindedness, and then or do you think the logical mind should be there? When we talk about the developer, is it that, okay, you should be more logical?
I think it's interconnected. Once we are really pumped up to do something, we have that sort of excitement and enthusiasm. The logical mind, it implicitly takes actions. We tend to incline towards being more logical, thinking about different scenarios where certain things would fail or certain things would pass. Mm-hmm. And it actually makes us more logical. And then getting the feedback is another thing, that always look for really getting the feedback. Mm-hmm. The feedbacks might not always be good, might not always be correct. They might be wrong, right? And I think the second most important thing after being enthusiastic about a task is, when we get the feedback, we really have to have a lot of empathy for whoever is really giving the feedback. Need to understand from where that sort of understanding is coming in. And it's not always a war of whether you are correct or the person who is giving the feedback is more correct. It's not like that, right? There are different scenarios that a human mind can only think. It cannot really cover all the scenarios. So it's always good to have a set of brains working on a complex problem rather than just moving into a silo. And when there are set of brains, I think a lot depends on how you empathize with different perspectives from different people. So I think these two tools, even without the knowledge of the software language that I'm supposed to work on, if I am really excited about a problem and I involve people for feedback and I am really having empathy to understand that there could be different perspectives, that does the 70% of the task for me. Believe me, that sort of attitude and communication, it wins the 70% of battle for you right then and there. The tools, the software are all prescribed. They work in the same way they have been working 10 years back. So they would do their job, right? It's just a matter of giving instruction. Even in writing software, what's important is the software part of the process, which is the excitement, enthusiasm, and will to take feedbacks from people.
Right. I think you've answered my next question as well, because the next question was what skills a techie should have, apart from the technical knowledge. So I think you answered that, or do you want to add something?
Just to extend a little bit, I think this is what I have observed through my career, that whenever we try to work on a problem and we try to involve people for feedback, try to have empathy, understand different perspectives and all, it is all very much interwoven with the lives that we are living.
Okay, now we are going. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead. I mean, I really like this kind of conversation. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think when in routine, right? If we look at some small kid doing something, there is an impulsive reaction of correcting something. If a kid is playing with a sand, we have this impression in our mind that the next thing that should come into existence is a sand castle. But the kid says, no, I don't really want a castle. All I want to dig into the sand just to see that how big of a hole can I dig. And I take pride in that. But the adult who is really observing, no, you cannot really dig a hole, because since my childhood, all I have seen is that how you can play with the sand is to make a sand castle. You cannot dig a hole. So that's the impulse that a normal adult can really give. If somebody has a control over that impulse, that no, I don't want to correct the child, let the kid do whatever he or she is doing. And I think there is a collateral beauty there as well. That aspect of life, it really comes to the software field when we get a task and we try to let things happen. We don't try to over control them. There are different perspectives coming in. So when I ask my peer that look at this piece of code or some pseudo code that I've written for an algorithm, sometimes he is not able to tell me immediately in words that what correction he is expecting me to do. So what he does is he takes my pseudocode, he corrects it in his own way. Now the 5 minutes that he is involved in correcting my pseudocode, there is an impulse in me. Let me look what he is doing and let me tell him that no, this is not the correct way. But that's what I learned from the child example in life, that hang on, right? Things would come to you in their own time if they are meant to come to you. That knowledge, what my peer is really creating for me by correcting my pseudocode, that is going to come to me. So to let things take its natural course is again another tool apart from technical tools that a techie really need to have, because things take time to take a good shape, and we need to be really patient with that and just have faith in nature. Basically everything will take its own course,
right,
just like the pseudocode or the software or the skill that you need.
Right. But then, okay, I'm ready with my next question, which is little bit I'm deviating from the topic. But what you are saying is about the perception or that thinking style, right? But that doesn't come overnight. So, what do you want to suggest to the audience how to develop those perception, which you have just explained?
I think I spend a lot of time in just observing things, and based on observations, I talk to myself on why certain things happened the way they did, and could I have really changed, or do I even need to do any sort of alteration with how things happen? So that sort of conversations really goes on within one's mind. So I agree that certain perceptions cannot be built overnight. It comes with the experience, but really the steps to reach that sort of perception or is to observe and talk to yourself about what you have observed. I think a lot of problems are solved by just living with them, doing nothing about them, just stay with that problem, and I think it tends to solve itself most of the times.
Okay, Chintan. Yes. Okay, my next question is more about project and all, which is like, how do you handle the tight deadline?
Well, tight deadlines are always a difficulty because there is an overlap in software field, the overlap of art and commerce.
Okay.
So art is something I think that the work that I am involved in, it really requires this object-oriented views. That when we get some requirement to write a software, right? So there are certain actions that software would do, and there are certain actors that the software would benefit, or the software would be used by. So actions and actors, and I need to apply object-oriented principles to convert that mind map of actors and actions into real code, right? So that sort of I'm sorry, can we go back to the question?
Yeah, so the question was about like, how do you handle the tight deadlines? But don't worry, even if you deviate, we get the good knowledge. So please go ahead.
No, but I think since there is a question, it's best to address it in a longer or a shorter form. So that tight deadline is, as I said, there is an overlap of art and commerce, and I think we need to break down the artistic part of our software writing thing into small parts and prioritize them. So there is a thing called MVP,
right?
And before MVP, I would like to say there is a book that I had read a long time back. The title of the book itself is very powerful. It says, everything is negotiable. So now, after sharing the title of the book, let's come to MVP. You build some MVP and negotiate the deadline. I mean, there are 100 ways to deal with deadlines. One of them is, let's not think that the deadline is concrete, like something permanently written down. So once we have that MVP sort of thing, we can negotiate the deadline, that this is how it is going to really come out. This is a MVP. Is it what is expected? And if people are really satisfied with that MVP, that yes, this is exactly how we had thought it to be, then I think they're still humans, right? Deadlines can be negotiated with that sort of MVP. And deadlines are most of the times is for giving assurance of the work. Yes, there could be different times when deadlines are about business, that if we do not get this thing out before monsoon, then I think the revenues that we had planned for would not really be done. So that's a different scenario. And
Mm-hmm.
I think if you understand that ask,
Mm-hmm.
then it's best to really work hard to achieve that part,
Mm-hmm.
because it's benefiting the customers, right? And customers as a king, not in a way that they really
Right.
command everything. But
Right.
if you are working on a software, and that software is going to run a business, and that business is going to benefit a customer, right? Then you need to believe in the cause to put that extra effort. So we've discussed two things. One is where deadlines really can be negotiated. Another is it cannot be negotiated, and we need to buckle ourselves to work hard for it. The third part is deadline cannot be negotiated, and it is really impractical. So in the third scenario, which is kind of a worst case scenario, it depends how much is in your control, right? What is in your control is to make the decision makers aware that how impractical of a thing you are trying to achieve, and win their trust, saying, I am set up for the failure. I don't really, I am okay with the failure, right? Because I see this as a utterly impractical thing to achieve. But it's my duty to really, tell you guys as well that, 30-40% be ready for the failure, because I understand deadlines cannot be. And then once you have really conveyed what you think is true, things are out of your control, right? So let the people who really have control do their stuff, and have faith. Something would happen.
Right.
But there's no point in really abandoning the ship at that point of time. You need to go on, right? Because I've seen people that this is impractical, I quit. I think it's there for a reason, to teach you a thing or two. So maybe hang in, and once the storm passes, you can evaluate and take your next steps. But there's no point in really quitting or abandoning the ship amidst storm.
Nice. Yeah.